this call, press 0. To refuse this call, your current balance is $22.32. This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using GTL.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing, Sharon? You good?
I'm just fine. How are you?
I'm good. Ready to get the ball rolling. What's up, podcast world? How you guys doing? Y'all know what's up. This that guy Real. I told y'all I was coming back with something new, something different. We not touching no celebrity shit. We not touching nothing dealing with Tupac and nobody else. I'm gonna talk real about real life people. And this one person I want to talk about, I'm familiar with this case. And it's right here in Detroit, Michigan, ladies and gentlemen. And the young lady we have on the phone with us right now, her name is Sharon Hunter. Sharon, introduce yourself to my podcast audience.
Hello, my name is Sharon Hunter. I have been incarcerated for almost 25 years in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I have 4 children. I was convicted in 1996 of a crime that I would like to share with you guys. It happened on the east side of Detroit on October 29th of 1994. And what happened was on the 28th, late at night, well, actually it was the 29th, early in the morning, I lived with my sister, Wanda Ratliff, and in the city of Detroit back then in 94, they were kicking in doors, talking about Detroit police, and that's exactly what happened to my sister. And they robbed her at gunpoint. They had guns to her head and her boyfriend's head and her sister-in-law's head. I lived with her, however, I was not there that night. They robbed her of her jewelry, her husband's jewelry, and they left the house. When they were leaving the house, they wanted my sister's jewelry off of her fingers. When she told them she could not take the jewelry off her fingers, they said, "Well, bitch, you're coming with us. We'll get the jewelry off of you." As she ran out the house with the guys, she made a right-hand turn. At that time, she saw a guy named Steve pull off, whose girlfriend lived 2 doors down from us. When she went to the right, Steve also went to the right. One of the guys that robbed her, there were 3 men, said, "Let the bitch go. We got what we came for." She ran back into the house. She called the police. About 5 o'clock in the morning, I arrived home with my boyfriend, my then boyfriend, Roger Lee. They told us all about the situation that happened. The police were there questioning everybody. I went upstairs. I lived upstairs because I couldn't answer no questions as I was not there. The next morning, I had found out that when they had robbed my sister, they took the car keys, they took the house keys. So I took my 2 children, as well as my sister Wanda's 4 children, and sent them to another sister's house because I didn't know what was going on. Mm-hmm. I then went back upstairs to my room. I started, cleaning up the area because they had trashed my room, and then started getting ready to cook breakfast. When I went downstairs, my sister had a friend of hers, Dennis Gover, who she sold marijuana for, and Rob Ketchens there. I told them I was going to the store at that time, take them to Ricky's house. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who. So I went toward Queen. When I went to Queen, which is to the left of our house, when I got to Queen and Lynette, I made a right-hand turn. And I went over, I think it's 3 streets, and then I stopped. It's a 4-way stop. I then turned at the direction of D. I turned a right into the 3rd house off the corner where there was a bunch of young men there. D said, "Hey, is Ricky home?" The fella said, "No." I leave. As I get about 4 or 5 houses down, D starts shooting and says, "Oh, these motherfuckers think something's funny." And he started shooting. My sister pushed my head toward the steering column, and I floored it and went around to my house. And I was fussing, "D, why would you do that? They're going to come back and shoot up our house." Mm-hmm. "I don't give a fuck." Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. I'm listening.
Okay. He said, "I don't give a fuck. Them motherfuckers thought something was funny. They were raw dogging us, so I busted a cap in them." So when I got back to our house, I immediately got on the phone with the police. Within seconds, our house was being shot up.
Whoa. What brought the guys to your sister's home that night to kick in the door, or possibly for the robbery? What brought them there?
Well, at that time in the city of Detroit, they were kicking in drug houses and robbing them.
Okay.
And my sister sold weed for Dennis Gover.
Okay. Now.
So I'm assuming that's why they kicked it in. I mean, I don't know why they kicked it in. I mean, the guy said we got what we came for. So they stole of her weed and her jewelry. So I'm assuming that's what he means.
Okay.
You know, I have to go on hearsay because I was not there, but this is the story that I've heard for the last 25 years.
The house was shot up. The police got there immediately. What happened when the police got there? What happened?
Immediately. Okay, at this point, we were outside because the shooting had stopped at my house. And then we were outside. The police pulled up. I met the police, like right on the sidewalk. And so he was like, there's been a shooting over on Rosemary Street. And so I did direct him to Wanda, my sister, because she was sitting there. So he immediately, after he spoke with Wanda and he told us that there was a shooting, and my sister, Wanda, and myself fit the description of the people from Rosemary, they immediately put both of us in the car. While we were in the car, both of us were in the back seat. My boyfriend at the time, Roger, and Wanda's husband, because it was common law husband, because they had been together for many years, were standing outside. But Dennis Gover was standing on the sidewalk. He was on crutches.
Okay.
Excuse me, because the night before, when my sister paged him. Now again, this is hearsay because I was not there. But when my sister paged him to let him know that her house had been robbed, he never answered. When he came over the next morning, the reason he was on crutches because he had said he had ran from the police the night before.
Okay.
He had jumped out of some building on 6 Mile. I'm not aware of where that building is, just somewhere on 6 Mile. And he had jumped out of the building because he had to run from the police. And he had broke his foot. So he's standing there on the sidewalk, and he's, why are you arresting them? They ain't did shit. Like basically being very belligerent to the police. So at that point, when it came over that this little girl, Michelle, had been killed.
Calm down. You okay?
That Michelle had been killed. It came over that I believe that was at the time that they identified D because of his shirt. So they immediately arrested D.
Okay.
As well as Roger and Charles because they had gotten word from the first precinct to arrest everybody at the house, which was the grown-ups, which was myself, my sister, Charles, and Roger.
Okay.
So Wanda and I were in one police car. I'm not sure how that goes. I think Roger and Charles was in one, and then I think Dee was in another. I have no idea where Rob was. Because it came over. It's been 25 years. I can't remember if they immediately were looking for Rob but it came over that there was 4 people in this car. Dee fit the description. And of course,
you have 1 minute remaining.
And of course, Wanda and myself being the 2 Caucasians, in that, basically the only 2 Caucasians in that area, we fit that description, as well as the car that I was driving was right there. I don't know if I specified where we were located in the car, but I was the driver. My sister Wanda was in the front seat. Dennis was behind my sister Wanda, and Robert Ketchings were behind me. They immediately took us down to the first precinct. And we stayed overnight. Well, actually, what had happened was we didn't speak to any police. We didn't give any statements, any police, until late at night. And then I talked to the officer, what they call the officer in charge. Okay. And his was Morrell.
Hello, this is a prepaid call from
Sharon.
a prisoner at the Michigan Department of Corrections. Woman, Ron Valley Facility. If you feel you're being victimized or extorted by this prisoner, please contact GTL Customer Service at 855-466-2832. To accept this call, press 0. Your current balance is $18.80. This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording.
Okay, we back. CD.
Thank you for using GTL.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I was at the part where we were at the police station.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to a man named Ivy. I'm not for sure if he was a sergeant or not. And at that time, I gave my statement.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote the statement out as I was talking to him. And when he left out some issues, and I recall the one particular issue that he left out was that I was on my way to the store. So when I said that now this is the first time I've ever been in any kind of police contact. I've never had a parking ticket, never anything. And so I said, well, you left out the part about me going to the store, and that's how I got in my car. And he was like, oh, that's not important. You're not being charged. We're building the case against Robert and Dee.
Okay.
So, I mean, I took him for his word, so I signed the statement. So throughout the night, we talked to a guy named Morrell. He was the officer in charge of our case. And then we talked to a guy named, and I never can remember his name. I remember he was like a top guy. He was like a lieutenant. His name was Sam Carter. I think it was Sam Carter, but I know it was Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you don't have to worry about anything. We just need you. Because he was releasing us. We were arrested on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
This was on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Because we stayed in the first precinct, 1300 Bovian, from Saturday morning until now it's Monday afternoon. And he said, we're letting you guys go. You're not being charged. We just need to know where you are at all times because you're a witness to a murder.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I don't suggest that you go back to that house that you live on. And, of course, we're like, we're not. We're going to find another house to live at. He was like, just always, wherever you move, let us know where you are so that when there's a court date, we can get in touch with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I forgot something that has just come to me, and that was as soon as we were arrested, we talked to some guy, not arrested, but once we got to the 1300 Bovian, we talked to some guy in this corner office of 1300 Bovian, and he flat out said to us, if you don't tell us what happened, we will personally take your kids from you, and you will never see them again in life. So, of course, we're definitely going to tell the story. We don't want our kids taken, and at that point, we didn't think we had did anything because we didn't shoot. This guy just shot because these guys were laughing at him. So, of course, we told what happened. We told the exact story to the police. So that's why they let us out on Monday. So we get out on Monday, and we go back to the house because now we got to clear out the house. The police have, of course, ransacked the house.
Mm-hmm.
All the fish tanks have been turned over. They're looking for drugs, I'm assuming. So all the fish tanks have been turned over. We have dead fish laying all over the house. The bedrooms are tore up. The couches are upended. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we clean out our area. We get what we can. We leave a lot of the kids' stuff, like we leave their bikes and their, all their little mopeds because we're just, at this point, we are so distraught that we just get out of town. While we're there, though, however, cleaning up, one of Dennis's best friends comes by the house and threatens my sister.
Mm-hmm.
So, and his name is Quasi Brown.
Okay.
And they're driving by and, Bees, y'all better get out of that house. Bees, we're coming back for you. Bees, all this kind of stuff. So we also showed up to court sometime in December, and I don't remember the date, for Dee and Rob's preliminary hearing, it's called, at the district court.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were in the hallway, because we couldn't be in the courtroom. While we were in the hallway, the same guy, Quasi, and another guy named Miguel Charlie, I think was his name.
Okay.
Wait, maybe it's Antoine Charlie Miguel. I think it's Antoine Charlie Miguel. What I say? I don't know what's it. Anyway, it's another friend of Dee's.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of like everywhere this morning, so I'm forgetting their names. But anyway, they threatened my sister again. She immediately reported it to the officer, Morel, and they arrested both Miguel and Antoine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was in early December. Well, that was the last we heard. We went to court. We told what we had to tell, and that was it. So we have now found another house, and early in the morning on January the 5th, a knock comes to the door. It's the police, and they arrest my sister and I again.
Mm-hmm.
And she has not been home since, and that was in early 95. Okay, I was arrested also, but I was pregnant. So in June of 95, the judge let me out on a personal bond because I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to be out for 60 days. However, because I had did everything that the courts had told me to do, and the judge was not ready to go to trial because she canceled court dates after court dates after court dates after court dates. But because I had did everything that they had asked me to do, she continued my bond, and I was out. Let's see, she let me out in June, and I ended up not. I stayed out till August of the following year, August of 96. So she let me out in 95 in June, and I stayed out till August of 96. And honestly, the only reason she revoked my bond at that time is because I had got pregnant again. So her thought was, you're facing some serious charges and you're pregnant again. So you need to come back to the county where you can't get pregnant.
Wow.
At that time, then I didn't actually go to court until October of 96, at which time, I will say this, after the trial, when the jury deliberated, they had a couple of them that did not want to find me guilty of the murder. They wanted to find me guilty of a lesser included offense, which was aiding and abetting to assault with intent to do great bodily harm less than murder.
Mm-hmm.
The judge would not allow them. She said either murder one or murder two, or not guilty. So, they, as it does in courtrooms and the jury rooms, look, we're not trying to keep coming back here, because it was like over a week that they deliberated.
Mm-hmm.
And they finally, they concluded to assault with intent to do great bodily harm. No, I did get that, but I also got aiding and abetting to second-degree murder.
Okay.
And so that was in October. And then in January, the judge sentenced me, and her reasoning for sentence, what she said was that because she had already sentenced my sister, because she got sentenced, we were arrested in January, and she was sentenced in November of that same year, in 95. She was sentenced to 60 to 120 years in prison because she had sentenced her to that, and because she had sentenced D, like minutes before me, to 60 to 120. She felt that the only appropriate action was 60 to 100. She only gave me 100 as my tail. She also made comments like she wished she had let the camera come into her courtroom because she would like to teach other young mothers about making choices like, living with someone who had guns and living with someone who sold drugs. And she had said many times during my court hearings that she knew that the higher courts were going to send me back down to her because she was ruling in the wrong way. But because of what she had did prior with the other two, she was going to have to do the same with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what the case happened in a nutshell. I'm sure if you have some questions, I'll be glad to answer. I just, it's happened over 25 years ago, and although I try to keep up with the story because it's a horrible thing. Somebody lost their life And being a mother myself, I miss my kids so much from being in here that I just couldn't imagine not having my child to see. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but my sister also lost her son, Wanda.
Yes, she did.
Um, and at first they were concerned that it was in retaliation.
Okay.
Uh,
Hold on.
okay.
Would you like to, elaborate on that? Because I was gonna ask you about that. I noticed that someone was trying to, if I'm not mistaken, shoot and kill her husband or something, and the baby happened to jump in the way of the bullet, or
Well,
something.
well, from what I understand, okay, it was late in the evening on September the 22nd of '96. Um, the kids where we lived was over off the like 7 Mile and 75, and there's a recreation center there, and it's called the Hawthorne Recreation Center. And the two oldest boys, um, she has 4 children, and the two oldest boys were at a football game, I think in Highland Park. And when they returned back to the Hawthorne Recreation Center, um, we lived the second house off the corner, so their father was standing there talking to the neighbor, and the kids were getting ready to go back into their home, and a gun pulled up, and Derek was in between the two houses, and he was sprayed with bullets. Um, at first, because they were like, my kids were like Wanda's kids, and Wanda's kids were like my kids, and of course I was trying to get out of the jail to go, be with my family and, bury Derek properly. The judge did not allow me to do that because at that time, of course, it was all over the news. This was in retaliation for a crime that his mother was in a year before, where there was, because they called our situation a drive-by shooting. So they thought that was the case. That was the case in this situation, that it was a drive-by, but it was in retaliation. It never came out whether or not it was a retaliation. They did, however, catch the 3 young men that did it, and of course they were sentenced to prison. So we never knew, it never really came out, if these people were friends or families of Michelle's or the Warfield family. So, we really don't know. But that happened, so, I can't really say too much about whether or not it is or not, because we'll never know.
That's
So
right.
that's something we'll never know.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. Now, you say when the police had you guys out, and was arresting everybody because they saw that D fit the description of the shooter because of his shirt.
Uh-huh.
Pretty much, did they say that over the air? Did you guys hear them say that the young Michelle Warfield had died? The young child had died, was killed.
We did not hear that initially. They actually had put my sister and I in the car, and then that's when we heard it over the radio. And then that's when they were given ordered from 1300 Bobian to arrest everybody in the house and D.
Now,
initially they were not arresting our boyfriends. They were just arresting myself and her. And then, of course, when the description came with D, they were arresting D. However, once they mentioned that Michelle had passed, that's when they had told him to arrest Roger and Charles.
Okay. Now, the situation when what was D's demeanor like, far as, after he found out that this young lady
You have
had just
1
passed?
minute remaining.
Well, as far as his demeanor after he found out that Michelle died, he was very cocky during the whole situation. He was very ignorant. He was very belligerent. They ain't did shit. You got to let them go. Wanda and Sharon, don't worry. You ain't did shit. Just wait it out. You ain't did shit. Like, he's really being ignorant. Like, them, of course, when the police was there, he wasn't admitting to shooting the gun, But before the police got there, he was. And everybody was like, well, D, why would you shoot? Them motherfuckers thought something was funny. All dogging us.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we went to court for him and he was in his preliminary, the judge, he said that. But he said the exact story I told. But he said that he said the same story I told. However, he tried to pin it on my sister. Of course not.
Thank you for using GTL.
As I was saying, Dee told the exact same story.
Mm-hmm.
However, he even said about the raw dogging part, they think something's funny, but he said my sister shot. But of course, they knew that wasn't true because no one in their investigation had said that. No one had said that.
Right.
So
now,
they knew that was
right.
They knew that was not true.
I read the transcripts of this trial. I read it, and I read the as far as the appeal packages of your sister, yourself, the young man D, and Rob. I read everybody's appeal that they filed. Okay, now I did see that in Rob's package, they were saying every witness said that Rob had the 380 and may have got off one shot. And the gun, they saw his gun had jammed after he got one shot off, and he was trying to fix the gun, but it was jammed. And they said that D was shooting, okay, and he was shooting a 9mm, okay. They said that your sister or yourself, no one had a gun. It was pretty much like someone in the statement said you guys had panicked, like you had panicked. Okay, in panicking, if I'm driving a car and someone just starts shooting and I don't know they're going to start shooting, I'm going to panic as well. I might have an accident, if going into that. Okay, so now they said that Michelle was down the street playing in her front yard and happened to be hit by a stray bullet. And the bullet didn't come from a 380; it came from a 9mm. And to your knowledge, the person that had the 9mm, everyone say it was the young man D that had the 9mm. Now let me fast forward up to like 21 years later. Rob filed. It was a little bit sooner for Rob. Rob filed an appeal. Now, in his statement, Rob was, from what I understand, he was from reading his transcripts. He was remorseful. He apologized. He gave a statement to the prosecutor saying that he felt bad about what happened because his son was just born a couple days before this had all happened. And he clearly stated that he was sorry. It's on transcript that he said he was sorry. The judge overlooked that and said he didn't have any remorse whatsoever, and that violated his constitution rights. So they resentenced him, and he was freed because they said that the judge clearly stated that there was no remorse after he gave a statement and a speech saying that he apologized and told the judge, I'm not the judge, but the prosecutor, that he was, if you got to know him instead of judging him on this case, you will find out that he was saying that he was a good guy and he was a friend that would have your back. And that's what that was. Now, on the other hand, when I read D's his appeals, we fast forward to 22 years later, in his appeal, it clearly states that he was violated, his constitutional right was violated as well for saying that he didn't have any remorse because the judge said that, he was through the whole thing, he was arrogant, looked, like he wasn't concerned with the matter. So the judge said that D showed no remorse. So his was turned over as well on that, on the same thing of, his constitutional right was violated. Now, it's in black and white. It's out there it's out there for you to read. There was no flaw in the criminal lab situation because you told me that that's why he was free, and that was not what I read, and it's there, and other people have read it like your nephew, and because your nephew said no, the nephew I spoke to said that that's what he was told, but after he read the transcripts and everything himself, he found that to be a lie. That wasn't the truth. So now here it is, almost what 25, 26 years
Mm-hmm.
later, the two women who didn't fire the gun are still in prison. Now let me go back to the two gentlemen. One has moved on with his life and married and converted over to Islam, and he's out, and I'm guessing he's trying to leave this behind him and put it all behind him because I tried to reach out to him and he no reply came back, so I'm assuming he didn't want to be a part of this. And the young man D, they got out from the word on the streets was that he was kidnapped and found dead. About what a month later, they found him deceased, and no one knows was that retaliation behind the Michelle Warfield situation, or it was something else. No one knows, but the streets talk, and the streets have a way of knowing what's really going on, but other people will not. Now, but I'm saying back to you guys. You guys are still sitting in prison, and you
Yes.
guys did not pull a trigger. No one put a gun in neither you or your sister's hand, and you and your sister did not fire one shot. But you two guys are still in prison.
Yes.
And do
Yes.
you, do you think that's fair? I don't think it's fair, especially.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, from what I do have the appeals of Dennis,
Mhm.
um, and I have read Roberts, but now from what I gathered from it, okay, part of the trial, okay, we each had our own trial,
Mhm.
and there was my sister went first. Dennis Gover, his attorney kept like he had several different attorneys because they either quit. Steve Fishman, which was an excellent attorney, he quit, and then he had to go through several other attorneys, and then myself. And then as of now you have to remember Dennis and Dee were arrested October the 29th of 1994.
I mean Dennis and
Okay, it
Rob.
is
Dennis and
not
Rob. Dennis and Rob. You
Dennis
mean?
and Rob.
Mhm.
Yes, Dennis and Rob. And as of January of 1997, Rob had not went to court, had not went to trial.
Mhm.
So the judge, our judge, which was Cynthia Hathaway, had recused herself, stating that she could not hear this case one more time. So she recused herself. So in February, he went in front of a different judge. I do not know what that judge's name is.
Mhm.
The judge was like, "You have been in the county jail for over 2 years, and you're still here on this thing." So the judge gave him a personal bond immediately
Mhm.
because you have a right to a speedy trial. So he let him out, and then in May he went back to court,
Mhm.
and that's when he was sentenced. And from my understanding, his judge said to him, basically, "You wasted the time. You should have pled guilty. You shouldn't have." So that's the reason. That was his constitutional right.
Mhm.
Yes, they did say the lack of remorse because they said that in my case. And they said it in my sister's case. They said it in everything. But what made the constitutional rights violated was the fact that the right to remain silent.
Yeah, the right to remain
And
silent.
he absolutely said you should have pled guilty.
Yeah.
At the same time, the day that Dee was sentenced, I was sentenced the exact same day. So we were standing in the courtroom together at the same time. The judge sentenced him first.
Mhm.
And exactly I'll never forget what he said, and that was, "Hey, I'm sorry it happened, but I ain't do it."
Mhm.
So
Wow.
the judge said to him, "How can you be rehabilitated and you won't even admit to being at the scene of the crime?" Again, right to remain silent.
Mhm.
So he later, after many years after Rob was out. That's what he won his appeal on.
Mm-hmm.
So I have researched my case, and I have researched my sister's case, and she did not say that to neither one of us. Yes, she did say the part about the remorse.
Mm-hmm.
However, my sister spoke at sentencing, and so did I. And so, and although in mine, I don't remember what she said in my sister's. However, in mine, she said, although I see remorse today,
Mm-hmm.
and you've spoken well, I still feel that, since I've sentenced the other two to 60, I should sentence you. I do want to say to you that, I don't know, our guidelines
Mm-hmm.
for the second-degree murder were 12 years to 25 years.
Yeah, they over-sentenced you
She went
guys over the guidelines.
5 times over it.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, my sister and I have done the entire sentence as far as our guidelines.
Right.
And so she did that based on the fact that, according to her, that my sister had this big drug house, and we were protecting a drug house. And how would I have my children live with someone who was running a drug house and had guns in the house? So that was one of the reasons that the judge sentenced me to that part. I had just moved to Michigan like a year before then. So I was a single mother at that point. I was living with my sister. I didn't know anything about the city of Detroit. So I was living with her. That was, that's what she did. She sold $10 bags of weed.
Right.
I mean, that marijuana, that's what she did. You know what I'm saying? She had 4 kids to support, and I had 2, although I did work a 9 to 5
Mm-hmm.
all my life. I lived with her. She was my babysitter when I went to work.
Okay.
We were sisters. We're sisters. We're very close sisters, So I just wanted to put that out there about the guideline thing.
Most definitely. Yeah, you were over-sentenced at the guidelines. Let me ask you this. Have you or your sister tried to reach out to the Warfield family, or have the Warfield family ever tried to reach out to you guys?
They have not. They have not, and we have not. And merely, I have heard of restorative justice,
Mm-hmm.
and basically that is like where you would meet the family.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to. I would love to reach out to Yolanda. That's Michelle's mother.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to. She had a cousin there that day, and it has, for some reason, her name has slipped my mind. I would love to reach out to them. And I have lived my life in prison, trying to give some kind of honor to Michelle and trying to do the right thing. I have only received 6 major misconducts in 25 years. I've tried to give back to the community that I reside in right now. I tried to do all of that, and always in remembrance of Michelle. I would love the opportunity to talk to her mother. And I want to give back to the society in which I came from and show that I'm not this devil. I never was this devil. Yes, I made a horrible mistake in taking that young man. But I have taken that young man. He was a friend of my sister's.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken him home before. He's never done nothing like that. He's never disrespected my children or my nieces and nephews or my family. He's never gotten into no fight out of my car.
Mm-hmm.
He's now. Was he a hoodlum? Was he?
You have 1 minute remaining.
Did he? Was he horrible in the streets? Yes, but he never showed me that type of person. So I never would have thought that he would have did that and risk his life and risk my own, and knowing the life that I lived. I would have never known that he would have done that. I would have never expected it. But I do hope to one day to get back out there and show the world that I'm not that person. That I never was, I guess I did make a horrible bad decision that day that has cost me, and as you see, I'm still a crybaby. I cry at the drop of a hat even now.
And that's
but
understandable.
But I do try to live my life in honor and hopes that one day I will. Now, her uncle, Michelle's uncle, is on the parole board, and he actually heard Dee the first time he went to his parole hearing.
Thank you for using GTL.
Okay, as I was saying, Dee actually, his first hearing with the parole board, Michelle's uncle was a parole board member. And he was given a flap. Of course, being from plenty of money, a family with plenty of money, they appealed it, and he was reissued another hearing under a different parole board member. At which time he did get his parole.
Okay.
I am active in the Chance for Life program here in prison, and he came to speak. His name is Jerome Warfield. He came to speak, and of course I'm like, oh, I want him to be my parole board. Not catching the two names. I mean his last name, and I later found out that that's probably not who I want to. Give him the opportunity. Although I would like to speak to him because, I would like to apologize to him. But I don't know if that will ever be possible. They don't really look too highly on you, contacting. I would need them. Like, I would love for Yolanda to write me some mail and me correspond with her. And, now now, I'm not sure if she spoke at Rob's. However, I know at Rob's sentencing. However, I know she did not speak at Dee's sentencing. However, she spoke at my sentencing.
And what did she say? What did she say?
And she also spoke. Just the fact that her daughter would never get the opportunity to go to college like I did. Never have the opportunity to work a job like I did. Never have the opportunity to have children like I did. And basically, why were you so dumb to take them over there? I honestly thought that Ricky was his friend. I mean, I'm not really from the streets.
Right.
Like, I had just moved to Detroit. I grew up in an orphanage, so, like, I really wasn't from the streets,
right.
But common sense would tell me in broad daylight, where a lot of people are hanging out, I'm not even going, forget that it's a rival gang member. Say it's my enemy. I'm not going to go over to their house in broad daylight and try to pick a fight with my enemy.
Right.
Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So if this guy if Ricky was truly a rival gang member, which we didn't learn that he was an enemy of these until January after we had been arrested, because we didn't know who Ricky was.
Right.
We did not know who Ricky was.
I was just about to ask you, who is Ricky? Yes, that's what I was about to ask you.
I would never even be able, even of course not now because I am, 25 years older, but even at the time, my sister she was like, Dee, who is Ricky? We were going to court in I don't know, it might have been January, February, after my sister and I had been arrested. So Dee and Rob was in one bullpen, we were in another bullpen, and she asked him, who is Ricky? And he said that Ricky had been, I don't know, what are they called, boosters. I guess Ricky was a booster, and he had been at the house selling Wanda some clothes for the kids. And he was like, I feel like that, he was over there casing a joint out. She's like, I still don't remember what he looked like. That's when he told us who he is. They went to school together, I guess, at Denby, and they were in opposite gangs.
So what it sounds like to me is Ricky basically was a fabricated person that was made up because your sister didn't know who the hell Ricky was, and because now in the transcripts I was reading, like in your sister, she even mentioned Ricky. I think in the in her transcripts of saying that it was Ricky that robbed the house or something of that. Or was that even, is that true, or is that something that the police threw in there and made up off of D? You know,
I don't remember my sister's statement, but even today, like she and I were just talking about it yesterday. She kept talking about Steve. She keeps talking about Steve because when they took her out of the house, Steve pulled off. So she thought Steve was the getaway driver.
Okay.
Because he went in the same direction as these guys that had robbed her.
Okay, now let me okay, Steve. So we can't just say because he was going in that direction and he was the getaway driver if they didn't get in the car.
Absolutely.
Right. So maybe Steve was there on something else and didn't know what was going on, or
it could have been absolutely. It could have been a coincidence. Absolutely. His baby mama stayed 2 doors down from us.
Okay.
He lived in the same neighborhood. Glenfield is 1 street over.
Mm-hmm.
He lived in Glenfield. Like she was familiar with him because he's a fella in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? He's got a baby mama that stayed 2 doors down. Her brothers and sisters were little kids. They played with my nieces and nephews and my children. So like we were aware of Steve.
Okay.
But that was just a thought of hers. Like when she went out the house, he pulled off. Yeah, but would that necessarily be the case? Absolutely not. I mean, just because you're driving by, you don't necessarily know a crime has happened. Absolutely not. But I'm saying what her thought was. At the time, that was her thought. And Ricky didn't come into play until Dee came over.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have never seen the statements that she gave to the police the night of the robbery.
Mm-hmm. Now let me. Here's something right here, right? Okay, it was saying something about the evidence established that defendants' need for retribution was the force that set the events into motion. Defendant identified Ricky as the perpetrator of the prior evening armed robbery, and who attempted to stand in her way of seeking retribution from Ricky. Okay, wait a minute, hold on. Oh, I went too fast. Robbery in front of Dennis and several others. Defendants made threats against Ricky, his babies, and anyone who attempted to stand in her way of seeking retribution from Ricky. That's what it was basically saying. Ricky, that she, it's just in the paperwork. It's kind of odd here because this is
okay. Now,
okay.
Let me say this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you or any of your listeners have been in contact with police.
Yes.
But they take a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, and then they come up with their theory of the chain of events.
Right.
I'm going to say this. I never heard my sister say anything about anybody's baby. However, Steve's woman had just had a baby.
Okay.
That's the event that she's talking about.
Okay.
She doesn't know who Ricky is. Did Ricky have a baby? Do you think that they would have investigated that Ricky had a baby? I don't know, but I know I can tell you that Steve just had a baby.
So possibility now Ricky is Steve. This is what is boiling down to, that Ricky really was Steve. She put it, D, if I'm not mistaken, D had an issue with Ricky.
Right.
And Steve.
And when he asked for the guy Ricky on that porch, there is a Ricky because he said, no, Ricky's not home. There also is a Steve, Terrell. There is a Steve.
Right.
He lived on Glenfield.
Wow.
Ricky lived on Rosemary. So there is 2 different guys.
Wow.
And Steve has a baby.
Wow. So when you
Steve
guys
had,
right, so when you went to Ricky Y'all drove him around there to Ricky. Y'all didn't even know what the fuck y'all was going there for. This is what.
No, because I thought Ricky. This is what I thought. This is what I thought. Now I
Okay.
can't speak on what my sister thought. I thought Ricky was his homeboy. He lived in the neighborhood. Hey, dog, you know what happened to my girl's crib? That's what I thought.
Okay.
Common sense would tell me that you don't go to some rival, your enemy, and ask him, "Hey, you know what happened to my girl's house?"
Right.
I mean, I'm not real street smart, but that's kind of common to me. I wouldn't do that in regular life if I wasn't in a gang. I'm not going to go to no enemy. There is a Ricky, and there is a Steve.
Right.
Steve had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
That's who she thought was the getaway in her robbery.
Wow.
Ricky didn't come up to a whole nother day, and Ricky came from D.
Okay, so
Ricky's name came up to D. She did not know who D, and I definitely didn't know who D was.
Wow.
I mean, who Ricky was. So when let's just say hypothetical, she said something about a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Steve had just had a baby,
Wow. Now,
Steve's baby lived 2 doors down from us.
right. So this is because it's kind of odd here because I'm looking at it like okay, because that day on Rosemary Street, 2 other people were shot. One person was shot in the foot. One person was shot in the back, and Michelle was shot and killed. And all bullets came from the 9mm. That they say D had possession of a 9mm.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, because the reason that Michelle, it just so happened that there's a Michelle's house. Now, mind you, on the opposite side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, her house is on the whole opposite side of the street.
Right.
Her family had a side porch, and it was just if I recall correctly, it was just like a slab of concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how, I don't know, at least when I was there, I remember most houses in the cities are bungalow, and they got a side door.
Right.
Well, and they got a front door. Well, the side door usually leads down to the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Well, her side door came out. Usually it's just some steps. They had a slab of concrete where, like, the kids were just playing.
Mm.
Had they been on the front porch, it wouldn't have happened. But it just so happened she was on the side. And unfortunately, it went straight in her arm and straight to the heart. And I think her cousin's name was, I forget, but she did have a cousin that picked her up. Now, they did try to say that I was stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that was the case, there were like 5 or 6 cars that were hit.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was stopped, how did 5 or 6 cars get hit? Like they got hit on the left, the back rear, the front headlight was busted. Another car got hit in the side, and I wasn't standing still. I recall that day like it was today, as far as my parts in it.
Okay.
That it's absolutely no way. There's different cars parked. There's cars all along the sideways. Now, was I going slow in the neighborhood at first? Yeah, because it's the neighborhood. It's 25 miles. There's kids everywhere. It's 80 degrees out on this particular October day. 80 degrees. Kids are out everywhere. There was some young fella standing on that porch. Hey, I pulled up. He said, "Hey, is Ricky home?" They said no. I left, pulling out in the neighborhood like it's a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, these motherfuckers think something's funny," and boom.
Wow.
But the cars are shot in many different locations. So how could I have been?
Mm-hmm. So now let me ask you this.
Still.
Did anybody in that vehicle after you guys got away asking, what the fuck did you do that for? Like Ricky or anybody? Or, I'm quite sure that you guys may not have asked him because, this is a individual that got a gun, but his partner didn't even think
You
to
have
ask him
1
what was he
minute
doing.
remaining.
You talking about the guys at the house or in my car?
In the car.
I did.
Okay.
I'm like, why the fuck did you do that, D? He said, because them motherfuckers thought something was funny. That's exactly what he said. So when we went to the court, his court date, he said, well, why did you shoot? The judge said, why did you shoot? Or why did she shoot? Because he said, Wanda shot. He said, because they were raw dogging. He was like, the judge said, what does raw dogging mean? He said, like grimming her, like, what's up? I mean, I am in no way mean this in disrespectful form, but what's up, nigga?
Right.
What y'all laughing at? What y'all laughing at, nigga?
So
that's what he said.
So this is basically he got on to stand and testify at his own hearing.
At the 36th district.
Right.
Not at the main courthouse, but at the 36th district, yes.
Yeah. Wow, you don't do that.
And that was like December the 10th or something like that of 94. But the only thing is so the judge was like, well, why did she shoot? And he was like, because she said they were laughing at her. They was wrong.
Thank you for using GTL.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and finish. Okay.
I was just actually, just telling you what he had said to the judge about, like I said, he said it was my sister, but the judge asked him, what does raw dog mean? He was like, like grimming us, like looking at us all rough.
Okay.
So he admitted it. He actually told the exact same story we told. I'm saying we, as in me and my sister and my boyfriend and her boyfriend and, ladies on, there was one of my sister's best friends lived next door, and I can't even think of her name, but they all said the same thing. Like, he said that he shot because they were, like, staring at him. They were grimming at him. But he said that it was her. So he actually admitted it without admitting it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So let me ask you this. Did they ever recover the guns that were used, or they didn't recover them? Did you know?
Never. They never did. Nope. At least in my paperwork, they never said they confiscated. And in at my trial or any of it, they never said that they recovered anything. As a matter of fact, in my police reports, it's not just a 9mm and a 380 that they recovered.
AK-47.
As far as shell casings on the street of Rosemary.
Okay. They
recovered shell casings from like 4 different kinds of guns. So basically what my attorney proved through the course of my trial was that was a neighborhood that had many different shootings.
Right.
And there were other bullets being shot because they found, at some point or another, whether it be that day or whether it be, a different day, there were other, I think it was a 45 and some maybe a 357, maybe, I don't remember, but it was several other bullet casings found, not just the 380 and the 9mm.
Okay, so now the other casings, were these casings that were fresh casings from that day, or they could have been just casings laying around from,
I don't recall them saying anything from that day.
Okay.
Now, I did receive a letter from D while he was in jail, and while he was in prison, rather. And it said that he had some newly discovered evidence. And one of the things that he said, that there was a witness, which he gave her name, in the house that on Rosemary that day, that claimed that there was a shootout, that once Dee started shooting, the young fellows at that door, at that house, started shooting back.
Right.
Now, I don't know. The bottom line, Terrell, is money talks and bullshit walks, and my family does not have money to pay for attorneys. So his family and Dee and Rob's family both come from money, and they had the top of the line attorneys. And he claims that his family hired a private investigator, and they found that it was actually a shootout. Now that I don't know. I don't know that at the time that I went to trial, that was not part of any evidence. He found that out later when he was in prison, and his family hired a private investigator.
Now, was there?
So of course that
was there any bullets in your car, the car that you were driving?
No.
Okay, yeah.
No.
If that was the case, I would think these were some horrible shooters. But we can't knock that off of the table that didn't happen. So Well,
obviously, since you say that yourself about being that would mean that there would be horrible shooters. Obviously, Dee was a horrible shooter, because where Michelle was at to where the guys were at, it's a pretty good distance.
Right.
I mean, it's in the same direction. But as you know, Queen is, that's not no little street like Lynette. Queen is like one of the major side streets on the east side. So, and she was, now remind you, I was at the third house when he had the conversation. She was, say, down to Queen, which was 3 houses down, and then across Queen. So he obviously, and actually, when I had a state appointed appellate attorney, and he said that he did not feel that me or my sister we would get out real soon. And that the actual perpetrator, which he said Dee was the actual perpetrator, would only do 20 years because it was obvious that he was not shooting at Michelle. It was obvious he was shooting at the guys in front of the house on Rosemary and not Michelle. Right. He just so happened that he didn't know how to shoot, and because your car was going, that he didn't have a straight shot to the guys. And that's why the bullets ricocheted and hit the one guy in the foot and the one guy in the back.
Wow. This is...
So he said that himself, and he was exactly right. He did 20 plus 2 for the gun.
Right. And yeah. Rob did a total of how many years before he
did I think he did 15 maybe.
Okay.
Because when he went back, he was sentenced to his guidelines.
Okay.
Which his guidelines would have been the exact as my guidelines.
Most definitely.
For that type of crime. Now, I think their score would have been a little higher because both of them had police activity. I, however, and my sister had never had police activity. Now, the police did come to our house before, but that was because, it was a family, a dispute. Her and her old man were having a situation. Okay. But that's just like they did try to, at trial, I don't even know if this is in any importance, but like they tried to say I had a situation before where the police had to come. First of all, I wasn't involved at all, and I had a witness came that next day. Once they let that out the bag, the witness and accused me of that. Of course, I wanted to prove myself that was not me at all. So the witness came, which happened to be an older sister of mine, and the judge was like, "Oh, well, since she was willing to take off work, I'll just tell the jury to disregard that." That's kind of like letting the cat out of the bag and then trying to put the cat back in the bag. It's probably not. It's probably not going to happen for you. You know what I'm saying? Because now it looks like I have a bad character, because of this situation. But it did get, she did show up, and the judge said, "Well, just disregard that." Okay. So. Is there any other questions that you want to ask me?
Now this is something I wanted to say. I'm gonna ask. I honestly felt from things that I've read and just from looking at it, I believe that your sister could have pretty much freed you in the whole beginning of by saying, "Hey, she wasn't there. She didn't know what was going on, and these were my friends and not her friends." How in the beginning of all of this, how were you and your sister's relationship, did it stay solid after this, or did it, it was some animosity there for a minute and you guys got over it, or how did it go? How did it work out?
Well, this is my thing. Because I know the situation, of course there's some, friction because, these are your friends and, this motherfucker, and, I'm not going to lie. But however, she thought Steve did it.
Right.
She never thought Ricky did it. Now, is she a little bit more rough around the edges? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. She's a little tougher.
Yes, she is.
But she's from the city of, she's not really, we're from the same place, but she lived in the city for a long time. Things haven't always been easy for her. She's a street girl. You know what I mean? She knows the streets. She knows how the streets go. And, of course, she did sell weed. But did she, for me to say that she could have got me off, that implies that, at least to me, that it was a planned situation. And if indeed it was, which I don't believe that. In my heart of hearts, I don't believe that because she's always thought it was Steve.
Most
But
definitely.
if, let's say hypothetical that it is, I don't believe that she would have put me in that situation. I don't believe, because she knows I'm the baby sister. She knows that even to this day, she'll tell you, if I could do anything to get you out of prison, I will. Now, what could she do? I mean, I don't know if there's anything she can do. Were those her friends? Yes. Did she know? But I knew Dee and Rob too. Now, I know of the other guys, their other friends, Quavy, Miguel, Michi, like that whole crew. Like, I knew them because, of course, they came by. My sister sold weed, and that was Dee's weed. So, of course, hey, let's come over and let's blow one. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, she did know them, but, like, she just recently told me if there was anything that I could do to get you out of prison, I would. I would be able to do this prison bit more, easier, knowing that you weren't in here. Why? Because I'm a punk. I ain't gonna lie. I cry easily. Not to say I ain't gonna stand up for myself, because that's not the case. I am gonna stand. This prison thing has given me a little bit more backbone than I had when I was in America. But I was in corporate America when I was out there. I lived in Philadelphia. I didn't live this life. You know what I mean? I didn't sell weed. I wasn't in the streets. You know what I'm saying? I had a 9 to 5. I was very, very naive. I've learned a lot since I've been in prison. But I believe in, I believe conflict resolution. I believe it in a positive way. I believe in, hey, let's sit down and talk.
Right.
Let's sit down and talk. I mean, you can't do that in the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I know you can't do that in the streets, as far as like when there's that kind of stuff. You robbed me, I'm probably not going to have a conversation with you. I get that. But I still will, I'm adamant about the fact that it was Steve. I'm adamant. And I couldn't, the police just want to create the story and get a conviction.
So let me ask you a question. Did she bring that to Dee and Rob's attention that it was Steve or not?
Yeah, from my understanding.
Okay.
From my understanding. And that's when Dee was adamant that it was Ricky, because he saw him selling my sister some clothes. Wanda don't know who it is. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you buying some clothes from the kids? Yeah, shit, they Nike and shit. I can get it for, $50 instead of $100. Damn right. Who ain't gonna do that? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, but to know that this is a rival gang member of Dee's, and you had this nigga in my house and he's my enemy, and no, she didn't know all that.
Okay.
She just knew, hey, this guy came and sold me some clothes. And from what she says, she still couldn't have picked him out.
And this is my understanding. If Dee saw this guy in your sister's house, why didn't he, in the beginning, say, hey, this is an enemy of mine, you shouldn't have him around? That makes common sense.
That would have been the right thing to say. Absolutely.
Most
absolutely.
Definitely. Okay.
That's what I would have did. Like, hey, man, I don't pick it with this guy.
Right.
So, you probably, he ain't for the right thing.
Most definitely.
You know what I'm saying? I would have thought that. But even, I'm telling you, even up until the time that we went to the county jail and saw him, because, once this situation happened, we never seen him again until we were actually locked up. I mean, we saw him in the courthouse, but we didn't see Dee again until we actually got locked up and was in the bullpen.
Right.
And that's when he said, Dee, he riding with the other crew. He ain't none of me.
Most definitely.
You know what I'm saying? And that's when, and she was like, well, I thought Steve, because, and that's when she explained the whole situation, which is who she thought. And I know it because they keep saying she made this comment about this. Now, when they were having these conversations, I was upstairs. Once I sent my kids and I knew they were safe, this ain't my type of company. This ain't what I do. You know what I'm saying? I never hang out with them. I've never hung out with them. My sister didn't have a driver's license. Right. And so that's why I would take them to if they needed me to drop them off somewhere, or that would, I'm going to the grocery store. So, yeah, okay, I'll give you a ride over there. I'm not thinking that you're beefed out like just common.
You have 1 minute remaining.
I can't reiterate that enough. You just don't go to your enemy's house to have a pleasant conversation.
That's true. Now, that, as they entered your car, did you see a gun or know that they had guns?
No.
Okay.
Now, if you ask me, would there be a chance that I would? Yeah, probably D, because he always carried a gun.
Okay.
That was all him. When he would enter our house, he would take off his shoes, as you know, because I think you've known him from the neighborhood. He's a very tall young man.
Right.
So he would stand. We had built-in cases, bookcases. So he would stand on our couch and put his gun on the very top shelf. So he never sat in our house with a gun on it.
Okay.
Never. But did he carry one? Yes, I would lie. I would be lying if I told you that I didn't know he never had a gun. So the fact that he might have had one in his pants, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. But did he like come out like, come on, let's go on this shooting spree. We're going over here to kill these motherfuckers. No.
Thank you for using GTL.
Hello?
Terrell, this will probably have to be my last call because they're getting ready to count us. So,
Okay, no problem.
They count us. If we're not finished, just hit me up or something and let me know what days to call. Because I go back to work.
Okay.
This is my Monday, so I have a one of the most prestigious jobs here in the prison. So I do go back to work today. I did want to tell you, though, that Michigan law is unanimous, meaning you have to have all the judges vote. When I was in the Supreme Court with my appeal, I did have 2 judges rule in my favor. One of them, they were for being remanded back to the lower courts to be given the instructions of aiding and abetting to involuntary manslaughter. Right. However, because it was Michigan law is unanimous, of course that is still a denial. And then my original appellate attorney, they have a thing called federalizing your issues. And what that means is at a state level, when you first start your appeal, you must state federal issues. For instance, the right to remain silent and blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, you have to cite federal issues. Well, my attorney did not do that. So I grieved him. I went to the appellate grievance coordinators for the attorney board, and I even asked him, hey, you need to federalize my issues. He's like, oh, you don't need your case federalized. You and your sister are going to get way out. Y'all are going to get out at the state level because it's obvious. That's when he told me that little story that I told you earlier. Mm-hmm. So he would not federalize my issues. So when I grieved it, the grievance commission said he doesn't have to. If he doesn't feel that it's necessary, he doesn't have to. So therefore, when I went to the federal court, they dismissed it. I think it's without prejudice. There's a thing called with prejudice and without prejudice. Mm-hmm. I think mine was dismissed without prejudice. That means federalize your issues and come back to us. Because I didn't exhaust all of my remedies at the state level. And that just merely means there were no federal cases cited.
Right.
So,
so
I did have a little bit of action going for me. But, that's how that goes.
Now, let me ask you this real quick. Okay, I want, if you could say anything to the Warfield family, what would you say to them? Because I'm going to make sure this get into the interview.
If I could, and I hope to one day I am able to, sorry is not good enough. If I could have gave my life instead of Michelle's, I would have. I am a mother who hurts every day merely because I can't see my kids. And they're living, and they're well. I can't imagine what she must go through every day of her life without her. There's not a October that goes by that I don't think of Michelle. I pray for Yolanda many, many, many days. My heart is heavy. I can never give it back. I can never give back to her because that baby will never come back. She's right. She'll never be able to have a job. She'll never be able to go to college. She'll never be able to even give that lady grandkids. There's nothing that I can do to bring that baby back. But I would like to live my life in honor of that baby. Give back to society. And what I mean by that, tell other people that the decisions that you make could cost you your life and could cost the life of someone else. And your actions, you have to think about your actions before you do it. Because something like, I would have never thought anything like this would have happened. Ever. I am 50, almost 54 years old. I have never had a fight in my life because I prefer to talk about it. Like I said, in that situation, there was no talking as far as, what happened in the street. So I say only that I've never had a fight because I'm not a violent person. I've never been a violent person. I'm a loving person. Kids mean the world to me. We have a program here at the prison where they bring young girls in. I'm on a waiting list because I want them to know how one life can change my whole world. How one mistake can change your whole life. I still cry. I am so sorry. There's just really nothing to say other than I wish it could have been me instead of her. I wish that it would have never happened. I wish I would have never hung around people like that. I even said it in my sentencing. I wish I would have never, and that meant my sister in the life that she lived. I wish I would have never left Philadelphia because I would have never been in no situation like this. I wish. However, Michelle's gone. There's nothing I can do to replace her. I would like to just give back to America to show and to, to be an example and at least live my life upstanding to give honor to Michelle and her mother. They never spoke about her father, but her father too. She has a father somewhere out there, and all of her cousins. So, I mean, that would be, I would just keep rambling on about things like that because that's just how I feel.
Yes. And because this year, if I'm not mistaken, Michelle would have been 34 years old this year.
Yep.
34.
Yes, she was. Yes.
And,
my kids were, Derek would have been 34, and her and Derek, my nephew that was killed, are the same age. Yes, 34.
Yes.
Because I believe she was 9 at the time.
Yeah, she was 9, and her life was cut down too soon over
Absolutely.
some dumb shit that another guy, was going to do that he shouldn't have even been on that street. He should have been 2 houses down from your sister instead of around the corner. And
right.
if he would have been 2 houses down, it may have been a total different outcome than what we have today. Honestly, do I believe that you should have been punished? Yes, you should have been punished. Do I believe you should have been punished this long? No, I don't believe you should have been punished this long. Do I believe that you should still be in prison? Not at all. I honestly believe that you should be out here in this society giving seminars, talking to young women and letting them know about the bad choices that they could make if they hang around individuals that they shouldn't be hanging around. I don't look at you as a liability. I look at you as an asset that could be a great asset to our community. And I pray that you do get out and, you can be a great access to our community because we need that. Because the young women today, from when you went in 25 years ago, those are not the same women out here today. And a lot of those women, They need your guidance. They need, you to be able to talk to them, and women like yourself to be able to talk to them. I'm quite sure you see them. They come in every day through the penitentiary, and you see that they're very different from when you went in.
Absolutely. Very young, and I try to be a mentor. I don't know, there's a million of them that call me TT, and that's what my goals for them are. They might only have a few years, but I encourage them. Look what happened to me. TT, you should, you don't even sound, but I did. I made a bad decision. that cost me my life and have pretty much, I'm not going to say have ruined my children's life, but the problems that they have today because I failed them as a mother also.
Mm-hmm.
I failed them as a mother. You know, I'm not there with them. I've missed their whole lives, missed the birth of my grandchildren. I have that one decision has cost everybody hardship. And I struggle, even to this day, 25 years later, I struggle with that.
Wow.
I feel like, I feel, you know, there's days that I do feel worthless. There are days that I do feel like shit.
Well,
You know, there are days that I haven't forgiven myself.
mm-hmm.
You know, I still struggle with God. You know, like, that's why, you know, that's why they give, I do believe that I deserve to come to prison. But because I made a bad decision, because I was so smart, I was dumb. Do I believe it? Yes, but do me for what I've done.
Yes.
Charge me for what I've done. To know that Dee was out there, to know that Rob is out there, they haven't touched back. But it was their decision.
Yeah.
They haven't touched back.
And that's a problem that I have, that the actual gunmen are free.
Yes.
Out living their lives.
Yes.
And you two,
And both of them promised because they knew that they were going to, you know, that they could afford an attorney that could help them and, you know, could do all of that kind of stuff. They knew that they had a better chance because of the money. They both promised, I got this appeal. We're going to touch back. We're not going to let y'all in there to ride. But that's exactly what they've done.
most definitely. So,
And although it was our choice to be in that car, I'm not minimizing that. We were not under the impression that that's what they were going to do. We were not under the impression that that's what they were going to do.
Have any of those guys before Dee's murder and Rob, have they reached back out to you, put any money on the books, took any calls, talked anything?
When Rob first got out,
mm-hmm.
he sent all three of us, because Dee was still in, he sent us all three a letter with his phone number.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I called, and of course, we all called,
mm-hmm.
and that was it.
Okay.
Never heard from him again.
Okay.
Dee, he got out. He gave us his phone number. He contacted my daughter. He, you know, that's what he do. He brags about what kind of loot he's got. You know, he's balling. I'm like, well, why are you getting that kind of money? I know your family got money, but I know you ain't living that same type of life. No, I'm straight. Well, the minute that my daughter was like, hey, because he was trying to holler at my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, well, I need some money. I need some money for my lights. He didn't answer the call again. And then he put $100 on my sister's books and my books one time, and he never. When I called him, he got real, you know, I got a life to live. You know, I got things to do. You know, y'all just sitting in there. You know, y'all ain't got nothing but time. You know.
Whoa.
Oh, so, and this is exactly what my thoughts were. Wait, hold up now. What I'm not is no bum.
Mm-hmm.
And I never talked to him again after that. I never talked to him again after that. That was probably like the first 2 months he was out of prison. And after that, I never heard until I heard that he was killed. I did not know the story about him being kidnapped until later on. But I did hear that he had been killed.
How did you hear about that? How did you find that out?
My nephew, my sister Wanda's son, he's on the east side of Detroit, and he knows people.
Mm-hmm.
And he told my daughter, and my daughter told me. But so I thought it was on the news, and at that time there was a guy on the news that had been killed in a gas station, but I guess that was not him. I was under the impression that that's what it was, but
it was on the news.
You know, I heard.
Yeah, he was on the news, but no, I don't think it was a gas station. No, not a gas
Right.
station.
And that was exactly I think what I've heard recently is that it happened in January and his body was found in February. It was exactly a year that he had been home.
I think it was about like about a year to a year and a half. That's
You
what it was.
have 1 minute
About
remaining.
yeah,
He left prison in January. He was killed a year later.
oh, okay, well, yeah, okay, a year later.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, you're
Yeah.
right. Okay, wow.
Yeah. So, and then it's been a year. So, it's been 3 years since he would have got out had he still been living.
Wow.
But listen, Terrell, it's going to cut off, and
Okay.
it is like 10 minutes before we have count here.
Okay.
If there's anything, that I can, I appreciate you doing the podcast, including me on your journey. I've been praying for someone to help get us our case out in the public's eye, and maybe we could just catch one person that would be interested in giving us some help, or just at least hearing our case, hearing from us. We don't deserve to be here still, and those guys are living life. They're living their best life
Well,
in America,
Sharon,
and we still. Yes.
like I told you, I built friendships. I don't burn bridges. Ships. 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 I don't burn bridges. Ships.